Hello there. Welcome into a Monday edition of the show. And I am so glad to have you, whether you're listening on your radio, streaming the show online at extrasports1300.com, or you've downloaded the new Extra Sports 1300 app, sponsored by Diversus Health, mental health and well-being for all. It is a football Monday, and that means it's time to report for game day at Hooters of Colorado Springs. Tonight, catch the fan filler, 10 boneless wings, fries, a dressing, and a drink for only $16.59. Get into Hooters of Colorado Springs for all the football action. And the football action tonight will include Buffalo and New York. Obviously, the Jets have made some changes recently. And we'll see how that all comes together tonight. Avalanche also in action, coincidentally enough, against New York, the Islanders. So much to discuss with that. But we start with football and the Broncos more specifically. This is now back-to-back weeks in which Pat Surtain has completely flipped a game for the Denver Broncos. 1 week ago, his 100-yard pick six took a game that the Broncos were trailing, that they did not look great to begin, and gave them all the energy, all the momentum. It completely changed the game, and they ended up coming back from that 10-0 early deficit and beat the Raiders. And one of the probably most fun Broncos wins that there has been over the last few years. Then yesterday, the injury to Pat Surtain did essentially the opposite. Now, not that the Broncos were controlling that game. It was too early to tell who was in control of that football game. But clearly the Broncos lost any juice that they had going into it when they lost Pat Surtain. And Riley Moss said as much. After the game, he said they had a dark cloud hanging over their heads. Said they were in a funk. And the Broncos didn't really get out of that funk until the game was already decided. And losing a player like Pat Surtain, obviously it's a huge blow to morale. Right? But you got to keep on. You got to keep on. And looking at the way the Broncos responded to losing their defense's best player, as opposed to what the Detroit Lions proceeded to do when they lost their best player, Aiden Hutchinson. The Detroit Lions watched Aiden Hutchinson break his leg, a gruesome injury. And what did they do after that? They continued to bludgeon the Dallas Cowboys. They didn't miss a beat. Now, not that anybody confused these Denver Broncos with the Detroit Lions, but given how the Denver Broncos basically fell apart without Pat Surtain in the lineup, just underscores how far away from that level of team the Denver Broncos are. It completely changed what they did defensively. They had to go more to zone than to man, and the Chargers just picked them apart with different players, but the same idea. We're going to run a receiver 5 to 7 yards across the middle of the field. Herbert hit him over and over and over again, and the Denver Broncos were powerless for much of that football game to stop it. And we're past the point, at least if you were buying into some of the conversation over the last 3 weeks, we're past the try hard, never give up, plucky Denver Broncos. The 3-game winning streak was supposed to raise expectation, was supposed to mean that the Broncos were at somewhat of a different level. So figuring it out when the Chargers take their foot off the gas is not some kind of moral victory. And on the defensive side, this is still supposed to be one of the best defenses in the league. Still had all their pass rushers, still had their defensive linemen, still had the rest of their secondary intact. And the Chargers just kept marching down the field and putting points on the board. I said last week that Sunday's game reminded me of the situation the Broncos were stepping into in Tampa, but with the Broncos' role being kind of reversed. I wondered if this Broncos team would go into the Charger game riding high, feeling themselves a little bit, and Sunday provide some sort of a wake-up call or crashing back to reality, and I think it ended up being that. Now, the Broncos gave that to the Bucks in week 3, and the Chargers gave it to the Broncos yesterday. So if people got a little bit carried away with what they thought the Broncos could be, and I said it, like, beat LA and New Orleans, and then we'll talk playoffs. Well, they didn't beat LA. And now you're not going to be with Surtain. You're not going to have him on Thursday because he's in the concussion protocol. It's going to be very difficult for him to go through all the steps and be ready to go for Thursday. So could a couple of days allow the Denver Broncos to kind of recalibrate, figure some things out defensively, and be able to compensate better without Pat Surtain? Perhaps, but it's only a couple of days. They don't have a whole week here. And the Saints are not as good as the Chargers. But you're on the road. Like, I don't know. A lot of it kind of comes out in the wash, in my opinion. And I just did not see a team be able to make adjustments in order to compensate for the loss of Pat Surtain. And listening to the Broncos after the game, in particular, Riley Moss just showed, okay, like, that's what a young player on a young team would say. It's a lesson that they learned. And Pat Surtain's a terrific player, but he's not. If this defense is what they were made out to be over the last 3 weeks, they would have done better against the Chargers. Like, that's just the way I'll put it. And they couldn't. Couldn't do nearly what they've been doing as effectively as they've been doing for the last few weeks. And it reminds me a lot of the Patriots game last year on Christmas Eve. A lot of similar conversations. Well, playoffs for this team, they're rolling right now. And then the Patriot game happens and that all goes away. Now, I'm not trying to say that everything the Broncos have shown over the last 3 weeks needs to be nullified. Okay, one game does not do that. I still think this team has shown that they are better than what many projected them to be, probably including myself. But that next level, They didn't look ready for that on either side of the football, right? And we'll get more in depth on what happened with the Broncos offense. But just as a team, losing Pat Surtain had them reeling and they never recovered. And they ended up getting, I don't care what happened at the end of the game in terms of changing the perspective. The Chargers won that game going away. They dominated that football game. And only when the game was already decided did the Broncos of the last 3 weeks show up. You don't get full marks for that. You got to do it earlier. Chargers just completely dominated that football game. But couple of days, lesser team. Perhaps this team will be better equipped to account for his loss against the Saints. And perhaps this was a lesson that a young team needed to learn. You look at young teams and there are lessons all over the place. Maybe this is another one they needed to learn to say, okay, we're not there yet. But Sean Payton said it last week. He was talking about the confidence that this team had and how they made a point to bring in guys with that makeup that would believe in what they're doing and believe that they could turn this thing around. But he immediately chased it with there's a fine line between a groove and a rut. And I'm sure that message was repeated all throughout the week. And I'm sure the players heard it and thought they internalized it. But then you lose Pat Surtain. There's your fine line. Completely gone. And the Broncos were in a rut the rest of that football game. Again, I'm talking more about the defense than the offense, but you could talk about the offense as well. And there's a whole host of other offensive issues that we need to get into, and we will over the course of the program. And I would love to get your thoughts on yesterday's game, 719-247-1313. But the Broncos aren't the only topic that I have on the show today. Far from it, because I try to bring a veritable cornucopia of sports topics your way each and every day. Coming up next, why even if the Buffs would have won that football game on Saturday, it would have been a troubling performance. Join me this Thursday. I'll be broadcasting this radio program live from Trainwreck, 812 South Sierra Madre Street. Of course, Denver, New Orleans that night in prime time. Plenty of giveaways, Air Force hockey and Air Force football tickets, drink, food specials, all sorts of stuff. It'll be a lot of fun. Always enjoy going out to Trainwreck. This Thursday, 3 to 6, 812 South Sierra Madre. Getting a couple of your thoughts in on the Broncos loss to the Chargers yesterday. Steve G says Herbert had way too much time and run defense was almost non-existent. I guess was the step back you were talking about. And look, the Chargers are a good football team. Like, it would be a different conversation if that would have happened against Carolina. Okay, then it would be really bad. And that's why I say, like, I don't want to remove everything that happened over the last 3 weeks and say we're back to square one here with the Denver Broncos, but it was a bit of a reality check in a lot of different ways. One, that the Chargers are much better than the Broncos. Two, that the Broncos aren't. There are some losses like Alex Singleton, inside linebacker, Baron Browning, one of like 5 pass rushers who are about as good as each other. There's a difference between losing those guys and losing a potential defensive player of the year candidate. And I'm not trying to minimize it, but again, you have another extreme with what happened in the Detroit-Dallas game, and Detroit didn't miss a beat. You don't think they were bummed? You don't think there was a cloud hanging over them? So the chasm is wide here, is what I'm saying. But they can get some of what they lost back in New Orleans on Thursday. And I didn't even talk about the run game. What does Pat Surtain have to do with the run game? I mean, honestly. And Sean Payton said it after the game. They knew what the Chargers were going to do, but they were allowed to do it anyway. Broncos didn't take anything away from them. And Pat Surtain has not a whole lot to do with how well the Broncos defend the run. The time of possession was just ridiculous. And the only good thing you could say is that the Chargers had to settle for 3 on most of their drives. But the way the offense was playing and the time of possession, it was just like, doesn't matter. Might as well be 10 points that they're putting up every time down the field. Broncos aren't catching up in this game. Brett, providing us an unofficial update on Pat Surtain, said he spoke to his friend. I asked him how he's feeling. He said, I like dinosaurs and corn dogs, and then sang the lyrics to Love Shack. It's good to go. Interesting, because I didn't think that anybody but doctors got to talk. I guess friends get to talk. He's not going to play. He's not going to play. And look, on the other side of it, not that they need Pat Surtain to beat the Carolina Panthers, but as long as this isn't super serious, he'll be back on the field against Carolina, gets that extra time to get back out on the field and clear the concussion protocol. So tough blow for them Thursday, no doubt about it. But you would think they would get him back right after that. Take your thoughts, 719-247-1313. Let's talk about Saturday, shall we? Even if Shedeur Sanders hits that 4th down pass on the final drive, which, yes, could have been pass interference. Kind of looked like it to me. You don't throw that pass. Okay? So look at the process here a little bit. That wasn't a good decision from Shedeur Sanders. And a pass interference call would have been a bailout of a bad decision. It was not, he should not have thrown that football. You get the first down yardage you need, and now you have 3 shots to go downfield before you face another 4th down. It was Shedeur trying to do too much. But even if, let's say, that's called pass interference, drive is extended, Shedeur leads them down the field, scores, they win the game. You wouldn't, it would be a big win, no doubt about it, but it would be an escape from a game that they really had little business winning, right? Because it was a regression. It was what the Buffs had been previously 2, 3, 4 weeks ago. Well, not 2 because that was a UCF game, but you made 2 games, 3 games, 4 games ago. Now, you're happy to figure out what went wrong and how to fix it after a win. But some of those old Buff things reemerged against Kansas State. And I will say this on CU's behalf, because it just got done talking about how the Broncos couldn't recover from losing Pat Surtain. Full marks to CU. They lost Jimmy Horn and they lost Travis Hunter, and they still had a chance to win that football game. So losing Travis Hunter, especially, I mean, Jimmy Horn to a lesser degree, but losing Travis Hunter, they still could have won that football game. And you would think that maybe Travis Hunter on that last Kansas State touchdown would have been guarding Jace Brown, who had, I believe, 200 yards of receiving at that point, or maybe he crossed that with that touchdown. But the truth is, the Buffs were manhandled on the line of scrimmage. The worst that they had been manhandled maybe since Nebraska. DJ Giddens ran all over them. 182 yards, 100 of them in the first half. I mean, what happened to the run defense against UCF? The run defense that held the nation's best rushing attack to next to nothing? What happened to that? Where did that go? Here's Deion Sanders on not being able to stop the run, or that K-State running back.
He's phenomenal. He's one of the best in the country. I mean, his maneuverability is unbelievable. We didn't tackle well today whatsoever. We didn't get to the ball as a unit today whatsoever. We had some busts in a few things. I'm telling you, I hear the calls. Coach called a pretty darn good game. He called a really good game, and we just got to execute the calls.
And then on the other side of the football, you get 21 yards rushing, and that's not taking into account the yardage lost by Shedeur Sanders on the sacks that he took. Which, by the way, can I just use this opportunity one more time? Stop counting sack yardage against rushing yards. Stop it. I don't know who came up with that. It needs to stop. Because it completely throws it out of whack. But taking Shedeur's lost yardage on sacks out of it. 21 yards rushing. It was back to the old formula of being completely one-dimensional offensively, not being able to stop anyone defensively, and just hoping that you get the ball last and Shedeur Sanders throws on his cape. It's not sustainable. It's not something that's going to consistently deliver you wins, and it didn't. Right? In fact, Shedeur Sanders tried to be too much of a hero on fourth down. It's not a good plan. And regardless of what happened prior to that point, it was still going to be one of the more significant wins, not one of the best wins. I still would have said UCF is better considering how that game was coached, how well they played in all three phases. It wouldn't have been their best performance, but given that Kansas State is ranked, given what it means for the Big 12, it would have been one of their most significant wins in the Deion Sanders era. And instead, it swung now to one of the most significant losses. Because now the perspective changes. A week ago, 2 weeks ago, after the UCF game, it was like, well, they don't have to worry about Iowa State or BYU. They can just take care of business on their side, see what happens there, and they could find themselves perhaps in the Big 12 championship game. Now you're looking at it and saying, well, Iowa State and BYU, they can't do anything about them. Right? And those two teams are still unbeaten. And now you have to finish above K-State outright. And now the path, and that's what it is. The margin for error in such a conference like the Big 12, it's very thin. Because they're not the Big 10. They're not the SEC. College football playoff isn't just going to hand out playoff spots to Big 12 teams like they're candy. It might just be the two teams that play for the Big 12 title game. If that. So it's a tough loss for Colorado to take. But you can apply this to CU. You could apply this to the Broncos. Improvement isn't always a straight line, right? The next week is not guaranteed to be better than the last. Sometimes you regress. Sometimes you plateau. Deion Sanders still, after this loss, believes that this team isn't going to go into the place that I think a lot of people think they might after losing to Kansas State.
This is a totally different team. This team has heart. They have integrity. They're tough. They love to play this game. We just came up short. We got to just learn how to win these particular games. We've done so this year as well, but that was one that we should have got it. Play here and there.
And I'll say the same thing for the Buffs as I'll say for the Broncos. It doesn't completely negate the improvement that we've seen from this football team. But now you're kind of bunching these games together and you're saying, here are a bunch of games, North Dakota State, CSU, Baylor, Kansas State, that all look kind of similar. Some wins, some losses, but they all look kind of similar. And then over here, you have the one game against UCF where this team played complementary football, where the coaching was where it needed to be. And you're going to wonder now, going into Arizona, what column is that going to fall in? And if it looks more like Kansas State, then UCF is going to look even more like an outlier. So this Arizona game this weekend is interesting from that standpoint. Could have been just a bad day to have a bad day. Maybe some of the improvements guys forgot about what to do or whatever the case may be. But it was a familiar refrain when it comes to the Colorado Buffaloes and how they try to win football games and how it won't work consistently, and it didn't work against a very good Kansas State team. Now, no update on Travis Hunter after the game. But again, perhaps you could look at losing Travis Hunter as why they were a different football team. Deion Sanders seems to kind of think so.
Certainly losing Travis and Jimmy and others was tremendous because they're a vital part of our team, vital part of our identity. They're a vital part of who we are. So that took a blow. We take your time, coach. That took a lot out of us, but other guys had the opportunity to step up and they did. So I'm proud of them.
Yeah, losing Travis Hunter hurts. And maybe you could look at a couple of plays in that game and say that having Travis Hunter would have made all the difference. But again, it's like with Surtain. Travis, the running game of Kansas State is going to be completely negated by Travis Hunter's presence. Travis Hunter, for everything he does, and it feels like he does pretty much everything except throw the football for the Colorado Buffaloes, he's not a running back. He doesn't block, at least at the line of scrimmage. So there are still things that you look at and you say, well, that's not missing Travis Hunter. Even if the Buffs win that football game, with or without Travis Hunter, there's still some things that you look at and you say, I remember this. This is what they were doing before the UCF game. You don't like it. But turning a phrase from Bill Belichick, it's on to Arizona. And we'll see tomorrow. Deion Sanders, I believe, is due to speak to the media, perhaps an update on Travis Hunter, because obviously that has wide-ranging ramifications if this shoulder injury is more serious, both for the Buffs, but also for Travis Hunter and a certain piece of hardware that he is pursuing. Take your thoughts on the Buffs loss, 719-247-1313. Coming up next, Jared Bednar is standing by his man between the pipes, but should he? Air Force hockey is back at Cadet Ice Arena this Friday and Sunday. There's a football game on Saturday evening. So they've moved hockey to Sunday. They'll be taking on Lindenwood. I have a pair of tickets for Friday night's game at 7 o'clock if you would like to go. All you need to do is be the 13th texter to text Falcons in your name to 719-247-1313. Pair of tickets, Friday night's game at Cadet Ice Arena. Speaking of hockey, if you thought being at home in your home opener against a team that ranked 25th in goals scored last year would be exactly what Alexander Georgiev would need for a get-right game, then you'd be wrong. 3 goals on 9 shots yanked 2 minutes into the second period of said home opener against the Columbus Blue Jackets. Alexander Georgiev right now has a robust 7.75 goals allowed average, a .680 save percentage. If not for Ville Husso, he would be dead last in both of those categories in the NHL. Now, funny thing about Ville Husso, he just got cut by the Red Wings. So he is now unemployed. So among active NHL goaltenders, Alexander Georgiev is the last in goals allowed and save percentage. But the Avs are taking a different tact with Alexander Georgiev. Not only are they not cutting him or waiving him or trading him, they're doubling down on him and giving him a vote of confidence. Here's Jared Bednar.
I get that there's a level of frustration, but Gorgie he's our guy. He's our starter, right? And I have full faith that he has the ability, the talent, the work ethic to bounce back and win us hockey games.
What Jared Bednar did not mention there, which I think is important to this conversation, if Alexander Georgiev has the worst save percentage in hockey, which he does, and Ville Husso has the second worst save percentage, which he does, Husso has a worse goals allowed average. Guess who's third worst in the NHL in save percentage? Justus Annunen, the guy that has now replaced Alexander Georgiev in both of these games. So yes, Alexander Georgiev is their starter, but it's not like the guy behind Georgiev is exactly pushing to supplant him. I don't expect anything different from Jared Bednar. I don't. I expect him to say exactly what you heard him say. But this is bad, what is going on with Alexander Georgiev. If you just watch the goals. Goal 1, Jackets are on the rush. Werenski beats Manson, which is a whole nother sore subject for the Colorado Avalanche. Josh Manson's defensive ability at this point. But it was a good play coupled with some poor defense in front of Georgiev that led to a goal. Okay? I don't put that on him. The second 2 goals were very similar. No huge defensive breakdowns. He wasn't screened, saw the puck well, he's guarding the near post like he should, and he gets beat short side twice. Those are just saves you have to come up with. You have essentially closed down all the space except for a little bit. That's all you have to account for when you're hugging the near post. Just this little bit. And he got beat through that itty-bitty space twice. You want to give credit to Columbus for having terrific aim? Go for it. But those are saves that a goaltender of Alexander Georgiev's supposed ability should be able to stop. And the third goal he gave up was an extra kind of kick in the nether regions because the Avs had just scored a huge goal late in the first period. Sorry, still working back into hockey mode. In the first period, to be able to swing the momentum back their way. And Alexander Georgiev immediately gave it back to Columbus, and Jared Bednar had seen enough. Jared Bednar also said in the post-game press conference on Saturday that the team, something to the effect of the team had the weight of the season on their shoulders. Loosely translated to they're gripping. Right? They're putting too much pressure on themselves. Well, why do you think they're doing that? Because they have to match goal after goal after goal. And then they work so hard to retake a lead or to get it level. And almost immediately, whether it's Georgiev or Onanen, they concede a goal. So no wonder this team is putting a lot of pressure on themselves. They have to. Right now, they got to score 6 goals. Not even 6 goals. 6 goals just to be equal to Columbus. It still would have lost them the Vegas game where they got to score 8. They got to score 8 goals to be 2-0 right now. That can't happen. You can't put that kind of pressure on the team. Right? Because what happens? It's a cascading effect. You concede early goals. The team has to work really hard to get back into it. They get back into it. Now they're gripping because they're worried about giving up another goal. They do because they make a mistake because they're gripping. And then they got to grip even harder and push even more to try and answer the goal. And it just keeps on and keeps on and keeps on. Having a good goaltender or solid goaltending behind you gives you the confidence that even if you make a mistake, it's not going to cost you. Right now, the Avs have to feel like we can't make a mistake. And even the best teams should be allowed to believe they can make a mistake and it not ultimately cost them the game. But right now, the Avs are not in that situation. And it's just compounding and compounding and compounding. And so these games have looked terrible. And they're sitting here at 0-2. Jared Bednar said it was a mental game with Alexander Georgiev, and perhaps that's why he did not get on the ice this morning, because he needs to get his mentals right and doesn't need to worry about the physical side of things. So we'll see if that gets better tonight. And tonight it's the Islanders. Certainly not a team with a lot of firepower, but to be fair, neither was Columbus. And you saw what happened in that game. So 2 games. Does it become 3? And if it becomes 3, how long can they let this go on? Chris McFarland, on the eve of the season, said points in games 1 and 2 are just as important as points in games 74 and 75. Well, we're 2 games in, and the Avs have gotten none points because of their goaltending. So how long can the Avalanche wait? How patient can they afford to be with Alexander Georgiev? And the answer is a little longer. But don't forget, the Avs don't have anything committed to Alexander Georgiev past this season. He is a free agent. It would be a little bit of a different story if they had just signed him to an extension and this is their guy for now and moving into the future. Well, we don't know that. Alexander Georgiev could go the way of Darcy Kemper and Philip Grubauer before him and then be like, okay, now you're a little too expensive. We're going to move on to a cheaper option. And the fact that that's the situation right now means why can't they make a move in goal? Why can't they change it up? They're not committed to Alexander Georgiev. Their decisions are a little bit easier considering Ananen has not been good when he's come in relief of Alexander Georgiev. But if tonight is a similar story to the first two games, I got to believe Ananen makes the next start. Give him a chance, see maybe if starting a game is better for him. I mean, Jared Bednar is saying the right things, the things I expect him to say, and 2 games, as bad as it's been, does not a season make, but how patient can this team afford to be? Considering the other stuff that they are also dealing with and the other uncertainty that surrounds this hockey team. Can't add another thing with the goaltending being like this. So after 2 games, sure. Stand by your guy. Give him the vote of confidence. Give him the next start. Do all of that stuff. But 3 games, 4 games, 6 out of 7, 9 out of 10, you have to wonder how long until even the very chill, calm Jared Bednar starts to get a little bit uneasy about this situation. Could it be when Capo Kakinen is cleared? We'll see tonight. Speaking of, looked at the lines, over-unders, props, just kind of looked at tonight's game on Circa Sports Colorado. Few of the things to look out for tonight. The over-under is 6.5. Now, before you make any decisions, understand that on the other side of the ice will be Ilya Sorokin, one of the best goaltenders in the league. So you can't just bet the over-under based on who the Avs have in goal. You got to think about the other team, and they have a really good goaltender. But Avs, because they've had to, have put up quite a few goals in these first 2 games. So the over-under is 6.5. Avs are minus 154 on the money line, plus 105 if you say the Avs won't need even overtime to win. It's a fun little quirk with betting hockey. And a prop tonight on Circa Sports Colorado, minus 155 for a goal to be scored in the first 10 minutes of the first period. Some of the lines and props you could find for tonight's game on Circa Sports Colorado. And no matter what sport you're betting on, just know that you're betting with the best. And you're betting on an app that strives to be better for the better. They often have the lowest holds on futures and other big markets. They don't limit players based on their winnings. And if you were ever to have an issue, just know that real life human beings will assist you, not chatbots. It's the same people that are behind Circa Resort and Casino in Vegas. And they want to give you the best experience all the way around. So do what I did. Make the switch. Download the Circa Sports Colorado app today. Must be 21 years or older and present in Colorado to bet. If you have a gambling problem, call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. Coming up next, Bo Nix puts in another brilliant performance when the game is already decided. Welcome in Drive Time Sports on this Football Monday. Ryan Kaufman with you. It's time to report for game day at Hooters of Colorado Springs with craveable wings, ice cold beer, plenty of big screen TVs, and the world famous Hooters girls. It's the #1 franchise in the league. Get into Hooters of Colorado Springs for all the football action. Tonight, Buffalo and New York. We got the game for you right here on Extra Sports 1300. But for now, it's this program. And a reminder, you can watch this program live on a daily basis on our social media platforms, Facebook, X, Instagram, YouTube. The handle all the same at XTRA Sports 1300. Congratulations to Douglas, won the pair of tickets to see Air Force take on Lindenwood on Friday. Got another chance for you to win before this show is over. So, the fact of the matter with Bo Nix is that he is a better football player right now than he is a quarterback. The two best versions of Bo Nix are when plays break down and he has to use his legs, and when the game has already been decided and he can just do whatever he wants. Right? And we've been talking about this. This was the discussion 3 weeks ago. Bo Nix, game already decided, make some nice plays. And you go, okay, this is interesting. But the thing is, you got to be able to see it when it matters. But let's start with this. Last week against the Raiders, Broncos were in control of that game. Sean Payton lets Bo Nix start slinging it around. Okay? Yesterday, the Broncos had zero chance to win that football game. Once, really halftime, if not before. But that thing was a wrap. Once you saw the way the Broncos came out in the third quarter, you're like, this isn't better. They had no chance of winning that football game, and yet here goes Bo Nix making highlight reel plays. And credit to him, right? There's still highlight reel plays. You would just like some consequence behind it. And that's part of this. There's two conversations. There's the conversation of whether Sean Payton should allow Bo Nix to do more of this stuff during the game, which we'll get to momentarily. And there's also, even if he's allowed to, does it look the same? Because not that the Chargers were in the prevent defense, but even the Broncos admitted after the game, like, the Chargers aren't mixing up their scheme. They're not throwing exotic looks at Bo Nix. They've chosen a defense, whether it's a prevent defense or not. They've chosen their defense, and they're just going to ride it out. If the game was more up in the air, then I at least believe that the Chargers would have changed some things up, made adjustments, and they would have kept the Denver Broncos from getting any closer. But they were ahead enough that they weren't in really any danger, so they just stuck with the same defense. And Bo Nix was able to make plays against it. But I don't know if he can do this when it matters. Really, the only time that I have seen Bo Nix make plays with either his legs or his arm, when a game was truly in the balance, were the two throws he made against the Jets. Everything else has either been very early in a game, very late in a game. So I certainly would like to see the Broncos try to utilize Bo Nix's strengths, his very obvious strengths that he has right now as a player, more and throughout the game. Now, Bo Nix was asked, the up-tempo, because that's also part of it here. The pressure being off, the just go out and make a play. It doesn't matter how. Just keep making plays. And also up-tempo. Time's running out. You got to accomplish a lot in a little amount of time. You're hurrying things up. You're not changing personnel. Right? Doesn't this all sound familiar? We were having the same conversation 3 weeks ago. Bo Nix asked after the game, hey, this hurry up, no huddle, playing with pace like that. Would you like more of that to be called? Bo Nix, a grizzled veteran in answering those types of questions.
we got incredible coaches. They're going to continue to put us in good positions. Whatever they want to do is what I'm going to do. And, it's my job to go out there and make, the play work, make the play happen. If it's not there, Coach Payton trusts me to just check the ball down, move on to the next play, get us in a good manageable spot, and continue to go to the next play. So, I don't really care what the play is. We just got to go out there and execute it.
And that's a good answer. Like if he was on Family Feud, the rest of the Broncos would be clapping. Good answer. Good answer. There's no way that Bo Nix is going to be like, yeah, I need more of it. He knows what the aim of that question is, and he's not going to fall for it. So good on him for doing that. Perhaps he's not so much Ferris Bueller after all. Sean Payton was asked about the same thing. Would you like to do more of it? Actually, you can hear the end of Mike Kliss's question and Sean Payton's answer.
I mean, is there any chance you can run something like that when it's 0-0?
Yeah. In fact, we have.
And then long pause. Sean Payton says, all right, leaves. Maybe they have. It's not enough. It's not enough. They are doing too much of the stuff that Sean Payton wants Bo Nix to do in order to be successful. I'm not saying that Sean Payton's not trying to make Bo Nix successful, but he's trying to make him successful in his offense, doing the things that he wants to do. And he needs to do more of the stuff that Bo Nix is good at. He is not nearly as good of a quarterback right now as he is a football player. Just go and put him in positions where he could just play ball. And those situations don't come up until it is too late or until Sean Payton is satisfied that nothing Bo Nix can do is going to cost them the game. And again, I'm not sitting here with 100% certainty that Bo Nix is going to be able to make the same plays that he does when the game's already decided, when it's not decided yet. I don't know. That's the point. We don't know for sure because he's not allowed. Maybe if Sean Payton lets him do that and defenses do vary up their looks, defenses do account for his legs a little bit more, maybe he's not nearly as effective, but at least we'll know. Right? At least we know. Hey, all of that stuff that happens at the end of the game, it's only possible at the end of the game. But I don't think there's nearly enough to go on when the game is still in the balance to say that Bo Nix can or cannot do some of those things when the game is on the line. Bo Nix yesterday accounted for something like 88% of the Broncos offense. 2 games looked really good for Javonte Williams. Yesterday wasn't. Same issues with the receivers. No one can separate. No one can get open. And yeah, Bo Nix, the interception is on Bo Nix. 100%. 100%. That was an inaccurate throw, but that's what I'm talking about. Accuracy is a quarterback thing, and he is not very accurate with the football, or at least accurate enough with the football right now. But you look at some of these offensive drives and you say Bo Nix has to have pinpoint accuracy to this point never before seen in the history of football because none of his receivers can get open. But to me, that's all the more reason to double down on the stuff that he does well. We found out with his predecessor, the ability to run doesn't stick around forever. And sometimes you just end up running into sacks. Bo Nix can run away from people. Where you know what it reminded me of? When Sunshine, remember Sunshine from Remember the Titans? When he tells the lineman to let the guy through and he ducks under him. Like, that's what Bo Nix did on that one play. Like, he ducked down, the guy went over him, and he took off running. I don't care what stage of the game that is. That's impressive. Give him that option. It just seems like too often he's trying to do what Sean Payton asks him to do. And in his head, you could just tell he's like, I want to run. I want to run with the football. Nobody is open. Let me run. He's not Drew Brees. And that's a good thing and that's a bad thing. The good thing is Drew Brees, I don't remember him running the way that Bo Nix can run. Okay, so that's one good thing about Bo Nix not being like Drew Brees. But here's the bad part about Bo Nix not being Drew Brees at this point. Yeah, he can't win from the pocket like a guy that was coming off of a 3,500-yard season and 24 touchdowns, which happened to be his fourth NFL season before Sean Payton got his hands on him. No running game to speak of outside of Bo Nix. So we're back to that. We're still never left the conversation about how badly this team needs a pass-catching option. Outside of Cortland Sutton's one or two crazy catches that he has a game. But that's it. That's what he gives you. The catch he had in the end zone, spectacular. Not many guys can make that catch. How many other things did Cortland Sutton do throughout the game? They need a more reliable pass-catching option, and I see other people starting to catch on. I was on this in the summer. Broncos need to get in on Brandon Ayuk. Broncos need to look at this guy. He needs somebody to get open. And maybe if they did, Bo Nix would be able to do some of the things that Sean Payton wants him to do. It's really difficult right now to evaluate this because the best of Bo Nix is doing things that I don't think Sean Payton necessarily loves that he does, all when the game's already decided. Okay? He has an offensive line that gets a new lineman hurt every week. We're back to Javonte Williams not being able to run the football. We're still with wide receivers that can't create separation and help out Bo Nix. It's like at some point, one of these variables have to be eliminated so we could get a better evaluation of Bo Nix. And the one I say they start with, let Bo Nix do this kind of stuff that he does at the end of the game in the middle of the game. Mike Kliss was spot on with his questions to both Nix and Sean Payton. Do more of that. And if we find out that defenses adjust, that Bo Nix is just, adding garbage time or whatever you want to call it, yards and stats, at least you'll know. And then Sean Payton, best of both worlds. Sean Payton can stand up there at the podium, smug as all get out, that we all thought that we knew better than Sean Payton. And he's like, see, not able to do that kind of stuff in the middle of the game. But I don't think he's given enough of a try. Will he against New Orleans? I don't know. Thursday feels a lot about Sean Payton. And maybe the play calling will be a lot about Sean Payton on Thursday. Speaking of, quick turnaround for the Broncos. We'll look just a peek ahead at the New Orleans game. And a very strong message sent to the Denver Broncos from Sean Payton after the game yesterday. Take your thoughts as well on yesterday's loss. 719-247-1313. You're listening to Drive Time Sports on Extra Sports 1300. 3-game winning streak for the Denver Broncos is kaput. And now they have a short turnaround to take on New Orleans on Thursday night. And Sean Payton with a message to his team after the game.
You know, normally we talk about getting the taste out of your mouth, but it has to happen when they go to sleep tonight, and then tomorrow, the focus is all on New Orleans, and it will be with me, you know, and it has to be, or else like this can lead to that.
What he's talking about is the idea of not letting the Chargers beat you twice. Right? And that was already going to be, I mean, every week that you lose, there's that conversation, right? But when you have an entire week to flush it, to move on from it, to prepare for your next opponent, it's a little bit of a different conversation than when you turn around and in 2 days you're in a new city and in 4 days you're playing another football game. And the way they lost that game, right? Just getting beat time and time again with the run game of the Chargers and that intermediate passing game where Justin Herbert just kept hitting wide receivers underneath that zone coverage that the Broncos had to switch to without Pat Surtain in there. Yesterday is not an easy game to just flush. But they have to do it because if there's any hangover, it could cost them against New Orleans. And there's going to be a lot wrapped up into that game. Most notably, of course, is Sean Payton's return to New Orleans. And he said today, I don't think there's going to be a lot of flowers and warm fuzzies for yours truly, and I get it. If you recall, and I don't know if he's just saying because I'm the opponent now, or he's actually speaking to the state of at least financial salary cap disrepair that the Saints were in when he left. Or he's just talking in generalities to say, hey, I'm wearing the other team's colors. I'm an opponent. That's a rabid fan base. I kind of feel like he knows how things ended in New Orleans, and he's referring to that a little bit. I don't think the guy gets booed. If nothing else, time heals all wounds, right? I mean, the guy did help save that franchise with Drew Brees. They did win a Super Bowl together. I can't imagine that it's going to be hostility other than, you know, good-natured, hey, you're on the other side now. We're not going to, you know, give you a standing ovation. I don't know. If Saints fans learned anything from Peyton Manning's return to Indianapolis, and I don't expect them to. Why the hell would they know what happened? But I remember, and you probably do as well, if New Orleans really wants to give themselves an advantage, what they need to do is they need to just pour the emotion out of themselves. Standing ovation for minutes upon minutes upon minutes, and just try to get the waterworks going with Sean Payton. I don't think he's that kind of a guy, but we saw when Peyton Manning made his return to Indy, like the better tact is not to boo, but to show how much you appreciate. Standing ovations, just like one big, long standing ovation, especially when the Denver Broncos have the football. Just like appreciate what Sean Payton gave your franchise. And also show a ridiculously and unnecessarily long tribute video. Although they are doing something like that, Drew Brees is getting honored. Now they'll probably say, well, we're in prime time, and that's why we're doing it. Okay. Sure. That's the only reason. Make halftime longer. Delay the start of the game. Whatever you could do to throw off Sean Payton. Definitely do that because it worked. It worked with Indy. Peyton Manning was terrible in his return to Indianapolis. On paper, with or without Pat Surtain, the Broncos should beat the Saints. Now, with Derek Carr, where's Chris Olave? No. But Spencer Rattler's starting. This should play right into the Broncos' hands. Because what the Broncos could not do against the Chargers was disrupt Justin Herbert's timing because everything was the quick game. Right? Get the snap, get rid of it. Even when they got pressure on him, there were a couple of throws where Justin Herbert has like his back turned to the line of scrimmage. He's 10 yards or more behind the line of scrimmage. And he just kind of floats it up and completes it for a gain. Spencer Rattler's not going to be able to do that kind of stuff. And he was not especially great against Tampa Bay yesterday. So this game should play into the strength of this Broncos team, which is blitz the bejesus out of this guy. So on paper, even without Pat Surtain, the Broncos should win this game. But we know that it's not just that, is it? It's the emotions of the game. It's the emotions of Sunday. And the Saints have this a little bit as well. Like they got to flush a pretty poor performance where Tampa Bay hung over 50 on them. They got to flush that. So that's a tough loss to get past. But there's more wrapped up into it than just, hey, Broncos talent-wise going against a rookie quarterback making just his second start should win the game. But you think it's bad after yesterday? If the Broncos turn around and lose again? Now we're talking about back to square one. Now we're talking about all these gains going away. And the Broncos would have a lot of reasons, not even if you don't include, this hangover effect. Say they flush Sunday's game, exactly how Sean Payton's telling them. Like they have a lot of reasons why they shouldn't win on Thursday. But you go from that 3-game winning streak to now losing back-to-back games. And if they look on either side of the football the way they did against the Chargers, it's going to be a long 10 days, and their game against Carolina will not be able to come soon enough. 719-247-1313. Coming up next, I'll give away another pair of tickets to see Air Force Hockey take on Lindenwood on Friday night. And speaking of homecomings, guess who's back at Ball Arena as the head coach of the New York Islanders. Friday night, Air Force Hockey hosts Lindenwood in the first of a 2-game series. The other game is on Sunday, if you are wondering. I have a pair of tickets for Friday night's game if you would like to go, and you can make the 7 o'clock puck drop. Be the 13th texter to text Falcons and your name to 719-247-1313. Tonight, obviously, all eyes are from the Avalanche side of things are on the current goaltender for the Colorado Avalanche. But, fun side story, the old goalie of the Colorado Avalanche will be in the building as a head coach of the New York Islanders, that, of course, being Patrick Waugh. Now, if you recall, things didn't end on the best of terms between Patrick Waugh and his former teammate, Joe Sakic. And surprisingly, Patrick Waugh was really open and honest earlier today when he met with the media about his coaching stint in Colorado. Take a listen.
Being back here with the organization and coach for 3 years was a privilege. And if I go back to the past, obviously, I wish I would have done things different. And then in the time, I think I didn't have enough respect for the position of coaching. I think I learned a lot from it, and I think makes me the coach I am today.
Really appreciate that level of honesty from Patrick Waugh. And what he's referring to, just in case you don't recall, is that he and Joe Sakic were essentially in a power struggle for exactly that, power, right? Patrick Waugh, to use the old Bill Parcells-ism, Patrick Waugh wanted to shop for the groceries and make the meal. And Joe Sakic was like, I'm the grocery shopper. And Patrick Waugh said, I want to be. And the two of them argued, and Patrick Waugh said, you know what? I'm out. Left the team high and dry. It was pretty unprofessional the way Patrick Waugh left the Avalanche organization. It really was. And I think he's acknowledging that. But he's also acknowledging that perhaps his tenure in Colorado would have gone better had he respected the position, as he said, maybe allow Joe Sakic to do his job, Patrick Waugh do his. And who knows, maybe Patrick Waugh could have had the success that Jared Bednar has had. But look, the Avs are, whether they would be better off, the same level of well off, they're good. To say they made lemons out of lemonade would be an understatement. Patrick Waugh left them in a lurch. And they went to Jared Bednar, who I don't think a lot of people, including yours truly, was especially excited about. And now he's arguably the best coach they've ever had. So I don't expect, is going back to the Sean Payton returning to New Orleans, like, I think Patrick Waugh should get a healthy ovation. And just in case the fans were thinking of not welcoming him back with open arms, Patrick Waugh, in true Patrick Waugh fashion, did make sure that he pointed out that without him, the organization would not have drafted Nathan McKinnon. He said that. which I thought that Joe Sakic liked Nathan McKinnon too. So, credit to Patrick Waugh. Like, look, and he did some good as a coach. Didn't end well. But what he did as a player, like, that's what should matter. Right? That should be Patrick Waugh's legacy in Colorado. At some point, it's part of the story how his coaching tenure ended, but it's not going to trump all those years of being the best goaltender on planet Earth and winning multiple Stanley Cups. So I would expect a warm reception for Patrick Waugh. And if nothing else, as fans have way too much to worry about with Alexander Georgiev to be worrying about the energy to spend on booing Patrick Waugh. So that's coming up tonight, Avs and Islanders. Funny enough, Jared Bednar, gotta get the exact quote. Mark Mosier tweeted this out earlier. Where did it go? Gosh, I get so many emails. Here we go. Jared Bednar today said he never met Patrick Waugh, but probably owes him a big hug for giving him his dream shot in the NHL. It's good. It's good stuff from Jared Bednar there. So in case Jets Bills isn't really your bag, Avs Isles tonight and goaltenders are the topic du jour. The goaltending has been so bad with the, you know what, I'll get into it later, but just throw out this comment. The Avs offense is humming right now. Like, they look really good. Casey Middlestat looks like a legit second line center. The young guys, but it's early for them. McKinnon lost his absolute mind at the end of the Columbus game. Mikko Rantanen had a great night. I guess the Nathan McKinnon thing doesn't quite align with what I'm talking about, but he did. He lost his mind at the end of that game. I would too. I mean, he was mad at the officials, but you know what was behind it. There was a bit of frustration built up over the way that game had gone. Offense is good. Offense is good to go. It's the other side of it that needs a good night tonight. Suffice to say. 719-247-1313. I thought that this game 2 of the NLCS was going to be as bad as game 1, but the Dodgers have made things interesting. Yeah, that's going on right now. Like it started earlier. I even forgot that it was on. I thought it was starting at like 4 or 5 o'clock tonight. And then I'm like, oh, Yankees. So what's the they're in a commercial break right now. Still 6-3. 6-3 Mets that jumped out to a 6-0 lead. Dodgers got 1 in the bottom of the 5th, 2 in the bottom of the 6th. So we go to the 8th. 6-3 Mets trying to even that series at 1 game apiece. I hesitate to even bring this up because I know what this guy is doing, but I've seen it in a lot of different places and I just can't go without mentioning it. In no way Should Deion Sanders be criticized for Travis Hunter's injury? Can we just agree on this and then move on? What makes Travis Hunter special is him playing so much on both sides of the football. Yes, that means that he is theoretically twice as likely to get hurt. But it's who he is as a football player. It's what makes him. It's like blaming. I mean, you could blame the Angels for a lot of stuff with Shohei Ohtani, but it's like blaming the Angels and saying, wow, they really screwed up utilizing Ohtani as a hitter and a pitcher because now he needs Tommy John. It's like, I'm sorry, that's what Ohtani is. He's a pitcher and a hitter. It's going to happen. But Jason Whitlock, who has a thing about Deion Sanders, he's been against him since day one. And now that he's been booted off of every reputable network that there is in sports, he's got his own thing that he's doing now. And he just, at every turn, takes shots at Deion Sanders. It's so stupid. Yes, Travis Hunter playing on both sides of the football increases the likelihood that he gets hurt. But was anybody saying, hey, they need to play Travis Hunter less? They need to play him on only one side of the football? No. Everybody was all in on Travis Hunter playing both sides of the football. We're marveling at what he's doing. Injuries happen. It sucks. Trust me, no one is as upset over Travis Hunter's injury as Deion Sanders is. As long as this isn't career threatening, Travis Hunter will play a lot of years of football after this. Deion Sanders has only got, less than half a season remaining with Travis Hunter? Blame Deion Sanders for it. Come on. Blame society first before you blame Deion Sanders. We want this. We want Travis Hunter on the field every single play, offense and defense. We caused this to happen as much as Deion Sanders. Come on. The guy can play at an elite level on both sides of the football. He wants to do both. The Buffs need him to do both. What are you doing? You're just using the opportunity. That's all it is. Oh, and then want to get this other item in before the top of the hour. Jamal Murray's knee is hurt. And yes, that's supposed to send chills down your spine if you're a Nuggets fan. Did not play the entire second half. Michael Malone today saying that normally Jamal Murray feels like tightness in his knee, but he's able to kind of loosen it up the more he plays, and he wasn't able to last night in the preseason game against the Suns, so he ended up sitting. And the inevitable question is, well, where's his conditioning level? And Michael Malone said, I asked him about his conditioning level, and he says he feels like he's in a good place. So Jamal Murray, in parentheses, knee, is not words that you want to see grouped together like that. But I did find it interesting that Michael Malone thought to ask Jamal Murray about his before he's even asked. It's not like he was asked and then he went to Jamal Murray and reported back. He already thought of it because I'm sure his mind went to it too. Well, is he conditioning where he needs to be? It's a big question with Jamal Murray, right? Went to him, said Jamal feels like he's in a good place. But notice that it's not Michael Malone saying, no, he's good. He's saying, I asked Jamal Murray, and Jamal Murray, said he was good. Michael Malone is not going to be the human shield for Jamal Murray like Nick Sirianni's son was yesterday in Philadelphia. Like, he is not he is going to put it on Jamal Murray, as well he should. Right? He challenged him. It was him and Calvin Booth that challenged Jamal Murray to get his conditioning level up, to handle injuries better. Should be Jamal Murray answering the questions about that kind of stuff. And I thought it was very intentional on Michael Malone's part to say, I talked to him. I asked the question. I'm aware of it because I know you are. I'm aware of it. I asked him. He said he was good. So we'll see if he is indeed good. As the NBA season starting up in 8 days? 719-247-1313. 3 stories that are driving the show coming up next. But in the meantime, speaking of your conditioning level, maybe it's not at where you expect it to. Maybe you're low on energy. Maybe you're feeling tired, lacking motivation, gaining weight, or noticing a loss of muscle mass. And you're wondering, what am I doing wrong? You may not be doing anything wrong. Maybe low testosterone, and that naturally occurs in men when we get to a certain age. But don't wait. Find out. At Low T Center, they make it easy to get your levels checked. It's a simple blood test, and with their on-site lab, you'll get results back right there. And if it is low testosterone, just know you're in the right place to get it treated. They have a variety of different treatment options because they specialize in this, including treatments that ship directly to your door. And you can do them at home. But in order to get there, getting ahead of myself, got to go into Low T Center and get your levels checked. Go to lowtcenter.com to book your appointment today and get back to your best. That's lowtcenter.com. Low T Center, reinventing men's healthcare. Hello there. Welcome in. Drive Time Sports on a Monday, and not just any Monday. It's a football Monday. Presented by Hooters of Colorado Springs. Tonight, catch the fan filler. 10 boneless wings, fries, a dressing, and a drink for only $16.59. Get into Hooters of Colorado Springs for all the football action. Tonight, it's New York and Buffalo. If you are in need of the audio version of tonight's broadcast, you're in luck. We've got it for you. Coming up at the bottom of the hour, our coverage begins from Westwood One Sports, and you can listen to it on your radio, online, extrasports1300.com, and on the new Extra Sports 1300 app. So all the same platforms that you listen to this show on. 719-247-1313 is the number if you want to get your thoughts in on this Monday. And perhaps you have thoughts about the three stories that are driving the show. All right. It wasn't the best weekend in Colorado sports. I'll say that. We'll start with the Broncos in story number one.
We did all the things that you can't do in a game like that. I mean, we knew the type of game that it was going to be.
That is head coach Sean Payton after the Denver Broncos have their 3-game winning streak snapped at the hands of the Los Angeles Chargers of Inglewood. And yes, losing Patrick Surtain did not help their cause. It did change the way they played defensively, went more zone than man coverage, but losing a player like Pat Surtain should not cause your entire defense to short circuit. It just shouldn't. I also on Sunday watched a Detroit Lions team that watched their best defensive player, Aiden Hutchinson, break his leg, and they continued to bludgeon the Dallas Cowboys. Now, even the most excitable Broncos fans did not say that the Broncos were on the level of the Detroit Lions after the 3-game winning streak, but notice the divide, how far apart they are. Riley Moss after the game talking about, it was a dark cloud hanging over us. We were in a funk. Well, you got to get out of it. You got to get out of it. And it just didn't feel like they did. And the Chargers proceeded to ram the running game down their throats. They brought up the same pass play. It seemed like the same pass play over and over and over again, whether it was Ladd McConkey, Quentin Johnston, or these no-name receivers that the Chargers have. They bring them across the formation, across the field. Herbert hits them. The defense was just lost without Pat Surtain, and it shouldn't look that bad without him. Then, meanwhile, on the offensive side of things, you get a very familiar situation, which is game out of reach, opponent lets off the gas, and Bo Nix goes wild. It happened a couple of 3 weeks ago. We had the same conversation about Bo Nix making a ton of plays late in the game. And what was the conversation then? They should try some of that stuff the rest of the game. Well, same thing applies here. I don't know if Bo Nix will ever be as good as he is at the end of these games when they're already decided. I don't know. I seem to think there's something there. But I also acknowledge that at that point, the Chargers were like, we're good here. So what has to happen is Sean Payton needs to bring that stuff into the game plan a little bit more, letting Bo Nix be a football player. Because Bo Nix, as a football player right now, is better than Bo Nix, the quarterback. Bo Nix, the quarterback, is inaccurate. Bo Nix, the quarterback, can't read defenses. Bo Nix, the quarterback, overthrows his receivers. Bo Nix, the football player, is ducking under sacks and running for 30 yards. And he can throw the ball in those situations, right? He bought time, kind of flipped it over the middle. Like, they're just, again, there's so many variables with this Broncos offense. Now they can't run the football with the running back again. The wide receivers are still not very good and can't create separation. Their offensive line continues to get banged up. At some point, the Broncos have got to eliminate one of these variables so we can actually assess how good Bo Nix is. And I think the best place to start is to take the things that he does well and use them throughout the game. It seems so blatantly obvious. And yet, this realization is either eludes Sean Payton or he willfully ignores it. And I think it's the latter. There's still this internal struggle of developing Bo Nix and turning Bo Nix into the quarterback he wants him to be, and letting Bo Nix develop in a different way. You still got to get to the place where he can operate Sean Payton's offense from the pocket. Like, we still have to end up there. But if this guy is doing these things when he's just playing backyard football and he's utilizing his legs, I don't know, maybe it's a circuitous route to get to where Sean Payton wants him to be, but it's a route. It's a route where the guy builds confidence. It's a route where the Broncos keep themselves in football games because Bo Nix is making plays. 88% of their offense was Bo Nix. When 88% of your offense is one player, guess what? You do whatever the hell that player does well, and you keep doing it. And it didn't happen till the very end of the game. We stick with football for story number 2.
Giddens in the backfield. The play fake. One-on-one down the sidelines. Caught! Flag! Touchdown! Brown doing it for the Cats!
ESPN on the call in one sequence on that one catch. Saturday went from perhaps the most significant win in Deion Sanders' career at Boulder to one of the most significant losses as they fell to K-State. And it's significant. It's a significant loss, significant win. You know why it would be one of the more significant wins. One of the more significant losses because now you further complicate your path in the Big 12. But that's really secondary because even if the Buffs would have won that game, I don't know how much they would have deserved to win that game. You know, there's something, there's a website that does this for the NHL. So if you're a hockey fan, you're well versed. If you're not a hockey fan, you don't know about this. But it's called the Deserve to Win-O-Meter. In every game, based on the expected goals scored, they make a little graphic. It's a meter. And it shows you that one team deserved to win the game more than the other. And it's just fun to see, well, did that team win? The Deserve to Win-O-Meter would have been definitely more on the Kansas State side of things than CU. Because it was the old CU formula of winning football games. Get dominated in the ground game, both sides. You can't run the football. They can run the football all over you. Become completely one-dimensional offensively. and turn to Shedeur Sanders like Princess Leia and say, help us, Shedeur, our only hope. And it was just Shedeur on Saturday because Travis Hunter got hurt and left the game. And I have no doubt that that changed a bit of what happened. But they were getting destroyed on the ground before Travis Hunter got hurt. Improvement is not linear. You can't count on, okay, next week we're going to be better than this week, and the week after we're going to be better than the week prior. It doesn't work that way. Sometimes you regress. Sometimes you plateau. And then you got to push through that plateau or bounce back from that regression. That's what Saturday could have been. Could have been just a momentary lapse back into your old form. But it does make the game against Arizona even more interesting from that aspect. Because if Arizona looks similar to Kansas State, then all of a sudden you have in one column North Dakota State, Baylor, Nebraska, CSU, Kansas State, and Arizona that all follow this same formula. Hope to have the ball last, trust Travis Hunter and Shedeur Sanders to win you the game. And then in the other column is the UCF game. But the thing about that is the UCF game is the ideal scenario. That's what you want every week if you can get it. You're not going to. But if Arizona looks more like the K-State game than the UCF game, then that UCF game looks even more like an outlier, like it's not who Colorado is. So even if Shedeur Sanders would have made a better decision with the football on fourth down, taken the yardage, gotten a first down, and led the Buffs down the field for another thrilling Shedeur Sanders win, they still, on the deserved win-o-meter, would have been very low. Because Kansas State dominated them at the line of scrimmage, as multiple opponents in the past have dominated CU on the line of scrimmage. Here's story number 3.
I get that there's a level of frustration, but Gorgie he's our guy. He's our starter, right? And I have full faith that he has the ability, the talent, the work ethic to bounce back and win us hockey games.
That is Avalanche head coach Jared Bednar after another stinker of a performance from Alexander Georgiev, pulled 2 minutes into the second period of the home opener, conceding 3 goals. And if you're keeping track at home, 2 of them were his fault. 1 of them was on the Avs defense. But the fact of the matter is he got yanked. Justus Onanen came in, wasn't any better, which is part of the reason why Jared Bednar is sitting up there and giving Alexander Georgiev a vote of confidence, because it's not like there's a guy behind him that you feel infinitely better about. But this is a horrific start to the season for Alexander Georgiev. 2 games in, I grant you. But this is a franchise that has a whole lot of stuff going on that wears on their nerves, right? They got the Nichushkin thing. They got the Gabriel Landeskog thing. And now you're going to add more uncertainty in goal on top of everything else. Avs play the Isles tonight. Alexander Georgiev is going to be in net. If it looks like the previous 2 games, you want to talk about which games are the real team and which ones aren't. That's kind of the theme with the Broncos and the Buffs. Same thing with the Avs. If Georgiev goes out there and is bad again tonight, maybe Justus Onanen is not a better option, but you got to try something. The guys in front of Alexander Georgiev, I know they've failed him multiple times over these first 2 games, but they are gripping and they are losing their cool because they have to account for every mistake ending up in the back of their net. Tempers are running high. Emotions are being frayed here. How long can they let this go on before they got to do something just to show Nathan McKinnon, Mikko Rantanen, and Cale Makar and the Avs skaters that, hey, we're trying something? We'll see after tonight. And if Georgiev bounces back, then we'll put the conversation to the side for a moment. If his rough start continues, I'm curious what Jared Bednar is going to say tonight after the Avs take on the Isles, if it follows the same script that Vegas and Columbus did. 719-247-1313. Take your thoughts on the three stories that are driving the show. Before take a break, did you know that you can now use your own body's healing properties to revitalize your achy joints and get real lasting pain relief? It's true. I'm talking about advanced regenerative medicine at QC Kinetics. If you're tired of arthritic pain in your knees, hips, back, or shoulder, this is something you need to check out. You can enhance your joints, improve mobility, and get back to doing the stuff you love without pain, and you don't need to use drugs. You don't need to have surgery, and QC Kinetics treatment has no downtime. They've got tens of thousands of satisfied patients, and the consultation, it's totally free. Call now, take action to get lasting joint pain relief with help from QC Kinetics. 719-347-1988, 719-347-1988, QC Kinetics, 719-347-1988. Thursday, I'll be out at Trainwreck, 812 South Sierra Madre Street. I'll be doing this show from 3 until 6, giving away Air Force hockey and football tickets. Of course, Thursday, Broncos Saints. Come out, come hang. 812 South Sierra Madre Street, downtown Colorado Springs, right down the street from Widener Field. From the 719, don't sweat the preseason, Kaufman. Back neck sunburns are common among goalies this time of year. Bednar is wise to this. Back of the neck sunburns, you know who never gets those? Cooper Manning. Did you see his hat? That it's like a cowboy hat, but like the back of it is like long and it covers up his neck. Blocks his neck from the sun. It was a tremendous hat that one only wears when he is completely confident in who he is as a human being. That's the way I would describe that hat. But you're right. I'm not saying Alexander Georgiev is done. I'm not saying he can't bounce back as early as tonight. But there has to be a level of patience that is no longer extended to Alexander Georgiev. There just can't. And it's not 2 games, he's out. But it's different. He doesn't have a contract after this season. If Jared Bednar feels like, this dude's cooked, then that's it. Demote him, make Onanen the starter. You brought in Kakinen, maybe he's going to be your starter, whatever. It's different when Alexander Georgiev is fresh off of inking a 2-year extension. The Avs have nothing tied to this guy anymore. So he's got to deliver. And I don't expect Jared Bednar to say anything different than he said after the Columbus game. I think he's right. I think he's dealt with this before, unfortunately. We're not there yet. But what I'm saying is we're going to get there quicker than we ever have before with Alexander Georgiev. And by we, I'm saying you, me, and I'm saying Jared Bednar. Because his team is losing their stuff in these games because they have to constantly account for poor goaltending. Like I said, it bounces back tonight. Sweet. But I don't know. Mets tack on an insurance run. So they lead 7-3 going to the bottom of the 9th. Ohtani due up second for the Dodgers as the Mets try to even the NLCS at 1 game apiece. Meanwhile, at 5:38 p.m., which is 13 minutes from now, it'll be the Yankees against the Guardians as the Guardians eliminated my Tigers over the weekend. The only way they were going to do it is if they got to Skubal, and they got to him. Grand slam from Cleveland, and they didn't look back. So now it's New York, Cleveland, giving me some like late 90s vibes. Of course, Cleveland was known by a different name back then. But I remember many a playoff series between the New York baseball team and the Cleveland baseball team. So hearkening back to this, I mentioned this in passing. How pathetic was what Nick Sirianni did on Sunday? I mean, really. I don't try to get too involved in the affairs of Philadelphia sports fans, except when they try to bring up a certain basketball player and assert that he is better than the basketball player that plays the same position that is here. Sirianni chirping at his own fan base after beating the most dysfunctional bleep show of an organization right now in the Cleveland Browns, and then bringing his son to the podium with him so no one can ask him any difficult questions. Oh, don't say bad things about me. You wouldn't say bad things about me in front of my son, would you? This dude. You know, people in your life that are just professionals at not getting fired. Like, that's what Sirianni has been the last couple of years. Like, he just does everything he can to not get fired. Beating the Cleveland Browns is not anything to celebrate. It is expected, and you move on. In fact, you nitpick the heck out of that win and say, we should have won by more. Deshaun Watson has not converted a third down in like his last 30 tries. You think the Broncos on third down are bad? And you're doing to your own fan base what you did to the Chiefs fan base when you beat them, when he's yelling in the tunnel, like, dude, that is weak. You beat the Browns. Forget saving your job. Can the Eagles give Nick Sirianni an extension? That dude is not long. It's getting to the point where if the Eagles don't win a Super Bowl, Nick Sirianni is going to get fired. Like, it's getting to that level. Even after a win, Nick Sirianni is having a ton of deserved criticism thrown his way. What week are we in? Week 6? Week 6, wrapping up tonight. A battle of two teams that claim they're from New York and only one actually resides there. The Bills take on the Jets. I checked on Circa Sports Colorado. New York getting 1.5. Am I nuts to hammer the Bills tonight? Bills got to cover 1.5? Come on. Circa Sports Colorado, you're too good to us. And either side of that line is minus 110, which is what Circa Sports Colorado strives to be. Other sports books, they'll do $1.15, $1.20. Just their way of getting a little bit more out of you. Circa keeps as little money as possible on large market bets like futures and golf tournaments, and they don't limit players based on their winning. So if you're looking for a better experience for the better, which is you, do what I did. Download the Circa Sports Colorado app today. Must be 21 years or older and present in Colorado to bet. If you have a gambling problem, call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. That is my time. You can catch more of me this evening if you are so inclined. I'll be on with Corey Roldan on KKTV 11 News at 10 to talk more about the Broncos. For now, I leave you in the very capable hands of the Westwood One crew for Jets and Bills. No show tomorrow. Talk to you on Wednesday.